Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, June 18th, 2026, 9 a.m. I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is being streamed live for the public to attend and recorded as a public record. Recording of the meeting will be available at www.ncwildlife.gov. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence or turn off their phones. At this time, I'd like to call on West Figures for the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand. And join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and I call on Commissioner Tom Berry for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege you serve as stewards of North Carolina's natural resources. We are grateful for the land, water, and wildlife entrusted in our care. Grant us wisdom to make decisions, clarity in our judgment, and a deep sense of responsibility for both the present and future generations. Help us to balance use with conservation and to act with integrity in all we do. Guide our decisions. Bless our efforts and keep us mindful of the trust placed in us by the people of this state. And dear Heavenly Father, if you will show us some mercy and bring us some rain, we'd all be grateful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to call on Margot Minkler for the roll call.
Good morning. Going to do a roll call for our June 18th, 2026 meeting of commissioners present. Warren Craig.
Here.
Vice Chairman Landon Zimmer.
Here.
David Hoyle. John Coley. Wes Seegers.
Here.
Tommy Fonville.
Here.
Tom Berry.
Here.
Brad Stanback.
Here.
Jim Huffman. Ray Clifton.
Here.
Steve Wyndham. Monty Crump.
Here.
John Stone.
Here.
Hayden Rogers.
Here.
John Alexander. Tom Hayslip.
Here.
J.C. Cole.
Here.
Mike Alford. Joe Budd.
Here.
Reed Smith.
Here.
Just Mr. Chairman, you have.
Thank you, Margaret. This time, I'd like to remind everybody of their mandatory ethics inquiry. North Carolina General Statutes 138A:15 mandates that the commission chair shall remind all commissioners of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest under this chapter, and that the chair also inquires whether there is any known conflict of interest, appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the commission at this time. It's the duty of each commissioner who is aware of such personal conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest to notify the chair of the same. Being none, we'll proceed. The meeting minutes were distributed to each of you in your agenda packages. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Zimmer to approve the minutes of April 16th, 2026. By the second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crump. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? I'd like to next call on Jason Cottle to present our financial status report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the financial status report, and all this data being presented today is as of April 30th. We are still in the process of closing out May as we speak. Looking at our general fund category, we had total revenues as of April 30 of $140,568,183.19. Our total expenditures in the same category, $139,071,739.38, leaving us with an April 30 fund balance of $22,609,585.82. Looking at our capital improvement category, again, as of April 30, total revenues were $22,593,316.09. Total expenditures, $20,630,421.97, leaving us with an April 30 fund balance of $6,437,626.68. Moving on to the agency's endowment fund, as of April 30, we have just about reattained our record highs of $254 million. To be exact, we're at $254,196,857.60. Just under 20% of that allocation is our short-term holdings. and 200 million, just over 204 million, or 80% of that is in equities. Looking at our expendable income earned to date, just over $100 million. And of that, after we factor out our after we factor in our known obligations over the next 3 years, we've got remaining just over 58 million. It's $58,764,463.60 of expendable income to be allocated to agency priorities. Are there any questions? If there are none, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Now move on to the committee reports. The first committee was the Rules Committees, Commissioner Wes Seegers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rules Committee met virtually at 10 o'clock on April 23rd, 2026 to review the 2027-28 annual cycle rule proposals for inland fish, land and water access, wildlife management, and wildlife education. 28 proposals were discussed and reviewed by the committee for clarity, impact, implementation, stakeholder interest. With only one clarifying change, rule language for these proposals to prohibit shining an artificial light in search of coyotes or feral swine from a motorized conveyance. All proposals will move forward as presented for proposal of notice of text of today's business. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Commissioner Seegers. Next up is the Fishery Committee, Commissioner John Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Fisheries Committee met on June 17th, 2026. Inland Fish and Fisheries Division staff were presentation. Staff summarized the land, river, creel, and traps the net data for assessing pond, river, black crappie population. Results from this effort indicate black crappie population in pond river is robust and anglers are satisfied with the crappie fishing opportunities. Staff discussed habitat use of Bodie bass in Lake. Bodie bass use different habitats. Some of them should be low strike. The division's aquatic plant that use sites depot aquatic plant first. Finally, staff discussed ongoing renovations to the Bobby Setzer State Fish Hatchery and current springs trout stockings. The renovation is on schedule and purchasing fish this spring help boost stocking numbers above what was anticipated. With no further business, the meeting was adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Stone. Next up, the Small Game Committee, Commissioner Ray Clifton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Small Game Committee met yesterday, June 17th. Staff presented several topics related to the agency's efforts developing habitat and private land. First, meeting reviewed an overview and update of the Wildlife Conservation Lands Program, which continues to be successful, allowing private landowners to keep management of their land and wildlife benefits. Next, staff presented results from the survey to private landowners that work with the agency to develop wildlife habitat on their properties. The result of the survey helped guide the agency's efforts on private land and habitat work for the future. Finally, the committee received a presentation from retiring wildlife habitat coordinator John Eisenhower, who shared his perspective of working with private landowners for 20 years, helping them develop the wildlife habitat on their properties. We'd like to congratulate John on his retirement. After that, the meeting was adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Clifton. Next up is Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole met yesterday afternoon and began with a review and approval of the Phase 1 land acquisition for the Rhodes Pond Depot relocation in Harnett County. The committee then considered temporary rulemaking adoption related to chronic waste and disease management areas. Following that, the committee reviewed the permanent rulemaking notices for text of the 2027-2028 annual cycle, including proposals for wildlife management rules, inland fishery rules, land and water access rules, wildlife education rules, and endangered, threatened species, special concern species rules. The committee also received the final determination for the periodic rules review. An update was then provided on the Holly Shelter Game Land Restoration Project. There being no further business, the committee was adjourned. That concludes our committee reports. I'd next like to call on Chris Tye to introduce our next speaker.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I'll say that I'm very excited that we've got this topic as your spotlight this morning. I don't think I have to tell anybody here that black bears are just a tremendous resource in North Carolina, beloved by so many people lots of time and attention for many, many years. And with that comes a lot of challenges. Managing black bears is challenging. And we're fortunate this morning to have Ashley Hobbs, who's going to address some of those challenges, tell us about some unique ways that we're dealing with that. And I'll just make mention that her top part of her working title is special projects biologist. That represents an adaptive way that we in the Wildlife Management Division sort of focus on things that really need a lot of time and attention. Thanks for being with us this morning, Ashley.
Chris?
Thanks y'all for having me today. Like I said, my name is Ashley Hobbs. My title is Special Projects Biologist, but I have two main roles with our agency that are pretty unique. One of my main tasks is being our statewide BearWise coordinator. So I coordinate everywhere from the coast to the mountains, but I am based out of District 9 and out of Buncombe County, and I handle all the human wildlife or human bear interaction calls specifically for Buncombe County as well. So I have a statewide hat and a local hat, depending sometimes on the time of day, and that can switch often. So today I want to talk to you guys about our BearWise program. If you're unfamiliar, we'll run through it quickly, and I want to give you Buncombe County as an example of why we need a program like BearWise in our state, why it's so important. So BearWise is an educational program. It provides science-based information so that you have consistent, trustable information for the public. So that if you have a mountain house in North Carolina, a beach house down in Florida, you get the same message on how to coexist with bears, no matter where you're at or which state agency you're talking to. BearWise is created by state agencies for state agencies, which also makes it pretty unique in terms of education programs. And for people like me who work in the field with bears, it's a great resource because it's designed to be grab and go. So BearWise as a national program creates documents that I can print off and take to a site visit with me, or our helpline biologists can email quickly and then move on to the next call. And we have trusted information and resources to provide to the public. In 2018, BearWise was born. It started as a regional program just in the southeastern US. It was housed under CIAFLA. Quickly, other state agencies took notice outside of the Southeast and wanted to buy in as well. So it is currently housed under AFLA and has become a national program. I think all but 6 states participate in BearWise and use it as their main education tool for teaching people how to coexist with black bears specifically, which is expected because, you know, Hawaii doesn't really need to educate people about bears. But that's rapidly expanding. So this has been a resource that's been identified nationwide as valuable to state agencies. So in 2018, Colleen Offenbuttle was the bear biologist. She made sure that North Carolina was one of the founding member states of BearWise. So from its inception, North Carolina has been a part of this program, both in its regional and at the national level. I came on the scene in 2019 as a temporary biologist under Colleen, and she tasked me with really having the BearWise program take root in North Carolina. We started out in places where the calls were coming from, where we needed it most. And we also established a recognition program where we can recognize groups in the communities in our state that are going above and beyond to coexist with bears. In 2023, our agency really bought into BearWise. We've always had support from field biologists up to the director's office, but we created my current position in 2023. So I came on as a permanent biologist in 2023, and I've kind of shifted my focus from establishing BearWise in the places where we need it most to really rooting it statewide. Because everyone in North Carolina can benefit from having information on how to coexist with bears. Presently, we are serving as a model for all the other states that are just coming into the fold with the National BearWise program. Our educational outreach and our media relations in particular have garnered a lot of national interest, but also international interest as well. So we have really positioned ourselves so that if you Google BearWise, if you Google coexisting with bears or something thereabouts, you'll see the national program pop up first, but a lot of the examples of how to apply BearWise are from North Carolina through our articles and outreach and documents that we've created as a state agency. Our recognition program is also leading the charge on how to recognize groups in your state that are going above and beyond. We are one of 3 programs in the US, and we are by and large the most developed. And because of all of this success and how we are acting as a model for the rest of the country, we've received recognition and interest from HBO documentaries. BBC is currently in town in Nashville documenting urban bears and how we coexist. Japan sent a news crew over to follow me around for a day and see how we educate people on how to coexist with bears. So we're having a lot of success in our state with our BearWise program. Now here's the why. Why do we need a program like BearWise? Well, pretty much bear calls are coming from all across the state. We have bears all throughout North Carolina, but you can see that we do have pockets where most of the calls are coming from with that dark brown color. You see bright yellow, shining true is Buncombe County. That's where the epicenter for human bear interactions is. In 2025, we received 842 calls about bears from specifically Buncombe County to our helpline. You can also see here that most of these calls that are coming in are people looking for help, advice, and assistance. Most people are having interactions and looking for ways to secure their trash or attract bears, attract birds without attracting bears. Now, if we really focus on Buncombe County, we see we're getting a lot of calls each year. This is pretty much a trend that we've established where BearWise is where it's at in terms of bear calls. On average, we get about 38% of our statewide calls coming from Buncombe County. That tends to be around 800 calls, but of course that can fluctuate annually. The second county with the second highest call volume is Henderson County, right below us in Buncombe County. And they usually get between 100 and 150 calls, so it's not even close. So why is this happening? Well, the urban bear study through NC State has shown us that we provide so many extra human provided calories on the landscape through unsecured food items like trash and bird feeders, for example, that we have artificially inflated their reproductive rates. So in Asheville, the bears are having more cubs per litter. The cubs are surviving to reproductive age more often than their more rural counterparts. And bears are having their first ever litter earlier in life. So we got more bears. And in a place like Buncombe County, you also have more people, a lot of urban and suburban development. So we've got more bears, more people, more calls. It's a really simple math equation there, but it's driven through unsecured food on the landscape. Now, I can't hunt my way out of this issue. We have research done into using hunting to address human-wildlife interactions. There's really mixed data on whether or not it can be effective. And in a place like Buncombe County, because it's so developed, there's not a ton of opportunity to harvest bears in Buncombe. So I have to educate my way out of this issue. And that's because we have not only a lot of calls, but we have a human safety concern here as well. So I need to really focus on Buncombe County and changing human behavior in order to change bear behavior. Not only are we getting a lot of calls, but Buncombe County is the epicenter for bears forcing entry into homes. We've had over 200 entries into homes since 2017. 2017 is when the helpline was created, so that's why I chose that time range. We also are usually where people are injured by bears. There's been 19 people injured by bears statewide since 2017. 9 of those people were in Buncombe County. That doesn't account for bear hunting, people injured during bear hunts, because that's a bit of a different context for what we're talking about today. Statewide, we're also pretty much one of the only spots where bears are having to be put down to preserve human safety. I have put down 6 bears already this year because they were breaking into homes, and it's only like mid-June. 40 bears statewide have been put down to preserve human safety. 29 of those were in Buncombe County. So I really rely on a program like this to change bear behavior because I don't have a lot of other tools at my disposal. So with BearWise, of course, I said we want to have a statewide emphasis. We're doing a great job already in Buncombe County. Most people in Buncombe County have at least heard of the BearWise program. But our statewide committee ensures that everyone else does too. We have representation from enforcement, education, communications, and wildlife management. And we also have regional representation within each of those divisions. So we make sure that we are working for all of North Carolina, not just a few. Our communications division has really been knocking it out of the park and helping me get the BearWise message out. National BearWise program just asked us to do a webinar, just focusing on how we get it right, how we avoid sensationalism in our messaging. We get science-based information out in a way that's palatable to most folks. So Ryan Kinnamore, Anna Gurry, Fairley are all super helpful, and we work really close together to get the message to the people. Our education division, of course, uses this program all the time as well. They enjoy it because they have a trusted data source. They don't have to come to me or to Jenna Malzahn for information about bears. BearWise has all of that trusted data-driven information for them. And I make sure that we all have a lot of swag, signage, articles, things like that, both coming from the national BearWise program, but also coming from our state too, and things that we have developed. But because BearWise provides these things, I don't have to spend time creating each press release from scratch. I don't have to spend time, developing articles and flyers and things like that. I can use that national program to take out some of that work for me, because again, it's in a grab and go format. Our wildlife management division is probably who uses this program the most. So as a field biologist, I can print off a flyer on electric fencing and take it with me as I go for that site visit on teaching someone how to secure their chicken coop. That's super helpful for me. Our helpline is constantly using this information, and because again, it's a trusted resource and it's grab and go, ready for them to use, they can handle a call quickly and efficiently and then move on to the next call. We are also able to use the national program to create partnerships with other agencies in our state. So here in this case, we took this rat card here that was provided by National BearWise, and we were able to tweak it for both U.S. Forest Service and NC State Parks to create kiosk signage. So really simple alteration that can help, help North Carolinians here locally. Again, I mentioned our recognition program early on and how unique it is. We have, again, the most developed program in the country, and we operate a little bit differently from the other two state agencies, Florida and Tennessee, who also have a program like this. We have 4 main categories for groups that can become recognized: communities, businesses, campuses, and recreation areas. And we essentially ask them to go above and beyond to do things like secure attractants. Garbage and bird feeders are 2 of the big ones that we have a focus on. But one thing that's unique about North Carolina is that I emphasize flexibility. If you want to come to the table to coexist with bears through this program, I want to find you a seat at that table. So the requirements are not as strict as you have to have a bear resistant trash can. Some people can't afford that. Or maybe they don't have, for example, an HOA or town ordinances to require people to have those things. So we find ways for them to meet these requirements within the means that they have. And you see that we have kind of a mix match of how they meet these requirements, specifically when you're looking at communities. So essentially this flexibility allows me to bring these groups together on the landscape so that we have these broader areas of people committed to coexisting with black bears. And that's really important to, again, change human behavior in order to change bear behavior and achieve those results we're looking for in a place like Buncombe County. I do hold people to these higher standards as well. We check in with them annually to make sure they're still meeting those requirements, and we make any adjustments if there's anything new going on in the community as well. I want to thank you guys for having me out. I am a certified yapper, so I could go on all day long with this, and I'm happy to do so if you want to continue the conversation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Next, I'd like to call on Will Casola to present temporary rulemaking adoption to CWD management areas. And multiple other things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. The first item I have for the commission this morning is the adoption of temporary amendments to 15A NCAC 10B0203 white-tailed deer, as well as 10B0502 CWD management areas. As discussed yesterday in the committee of the whole, the amendments remove Sampson County from the white-tailed deer rule and move the county to the CWD management areas rules. Staff recommend adoption of the amended rule text as presented in Exhibit C2.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Seegers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom Berry. Any questions, discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Next.
So the next thing I have is notice of text for rule amendments and adoptions as part of the 2027-2028 annual cycle process. As discussed yesterday in the committee of the whole, the amendments adjust and establish a variety of rules for wildlife management, inland fisheries, land and water access, wildlife education, and endangered species permitting. Now, I believe we're scheduled to do these individually, so I'll present each set of rules and fiscal note and staff recommendations. First are proposed amendments to the wildlife management rules. Staff recommend publishing notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing for the wildlife management proposals as presented in Exhibit D1, and the fiscal note as presented in Exhibit D2.
I have a motion for D1 and D2.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron. Second. Hand back. Any discussions, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Next are proposed permanent amendments to inland fisheries rules. Staff recommend publishing notice of text and open comment period for the proposed inland fisheries rules as presented in Exhibit E1 and the fiscal note as presented in Exhibit E2.
I have a motion for E1 and E2.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner John Stone, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hayden Rogers. Any further discussions or questions? All in favor? Opposed?
Next are proposed permanent amendments for land and water access rules. Staff recommend publishing notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing for the land and water access rules as presented in Exhibit F1 and approval of fiscal note as presented in Exhibit F2.
I have a motion for F1 and F2.
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Zimmer, second by Commissioner Stanback. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Next are proposed permanent amendments to wildlife education rules and specifically shooting ranges. Staff recommend publishing notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing for the proposed wildlife education rules as presented in Exhibit G1 and approval of fiscal note as presented in Exhibit G2.
I have a motion for G1 and G2.
One D2 motion.
Motion by Commissioner Berry, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fonda. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
And last are proposed permanent amendments to endangered species permitting. Staff recommend publishing notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing for the endangered species permitting rules as presented in Exhibit H1 and approval of fiscal note as presented in Exhibit H2.
Do I have a motion? Motion for H1 and H2 by Commissioner Hayden Rogers. Second. Second. Second by Commissioner Seeger. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
And the last item I have today are the final determinations as part of the periodic rules review process. As discussed yesterday, we did not receive any comments on those initial determinations. Thus, the final determinations are unchanged from the February meeting, and all rules have been classified as necessary. Staff recommend approval of the final determination reports as presented in Exhibit I.
Do I have a motion for Exhibit I?
So moved.
Commissioner Crump, do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Stanback. Any further questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Will.
Thanks.
Next up, a comment by the chair. I'd like to, as usual, thank staff for all their hard work. Obviously, the meeting today has gone very quickly because of all the good work in the past. I'd like to thank everybody for keeping the sensor hatchery on schedule. It's about 19% complete. Big accomplishment. It sounds like we're making progress. Task force together the balance with a good neighbor agreement with the U.S. Forest Service. That's good news for that area. I believe we had one comment of privilege.
Yes, sir. If I could just take a moment, want to thank Director Briggs of Margo for coordinating the orientation yesterday, and all the staff that took time to go into that. It was extremely thorough. Every staff member took a lot of pride in their presentation and took it very seriously. It was very helpful for me. And I'm very grateful, particularly the rulemaking. I can't say that enough. I believe some of that's going to get sent to everyone. That was extremely helpful. The IT and marketing discussions were fascinating as we tackle AI and some of the things that are coming. I think that's on the horizon for us, but very grateful for staff for doing that. I do think the idea of doing that again and videoing it would be very helpful, so commissioners could take it as they need it. And for new commissioners, we don't have to assemble the staff every time to do it. So just feedback, I think that'd be a good use of time to get that videoed and just have it logged for the future.
Thank you for those comments. I agree. I learned some stuff yesterday that I didn't know. So very helpful to us all commissioners as well. That's the end of my comments. Any comments from the executive director?
Yes, sir. I just want to thank all the commissioners for their attendance and their support. Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Crump, Chairman Craig. yesterday at the orientation, and obviously our staff are top notch, and they do truly love what they do. I do also want to wish everybody a safe 250th celebration for the 4th of July, now in our next commission meeting. Certainly want to think about staff and Commissioner Berry's comments about the rain. A lot of our staff are dealing with those issues, just like our farmers are. Opposite fields that our staff are trying to plant for dove. Hatchery staff are trying to keep fish alive, so I want to wish them well. And lastly, I wanted to let everybody know, we talked about John Eisenhower's retirement yesterday. I also wanted to let y'all know that Betsy Haywood is retiring. Longtime commission liaison and the wing zone coordinator. Her last official day will be July 31st. But wanted to give y'all a heads up in advance of that if anybody wanted to wish her well. So,
How old is Betsy? Betsy.
well, probably somewhere around 15, a little over 15 years.
I know we talked about it. I'm sure your staff is still looking or remembers for Doug Howe.
Yes, sir. We are still trying to figure out exactly what the best
What's
best
appropriate.
location. Yes, sir. Bring that deal.
Very good. Obviously, this was a very quick meeting. We had very few committees yesterday. July will not be the case. It is a very full meeting. Appreciate everybody's attendance, and candid that we've got a lot of work to get on July. Saying that, meeting's adjourned.